Let's open our devices and listen now. Let's have some fun, and this is how. As we have our INC radio podcast playing, we will have so much fun listening. INC Radio Podcast, we're here to hear. We're here to be. Hello, everyone. What's up? What's up, everyone? Welcome to the first episode of the INC Radio Podcast. At ako po ang inyong mga kasama sa brother Jake on Australia, your brother Bacon with a J. At kung nasan man po kayo, I hope you are okay. I hope you are doing fine. And I am sure doing fine din yung mga kasama ko po for today's. Unahin na natin pakilala ang pinaka maganda sa kanilang lahat. Ate LJ, totoo ba yan? Do you agree?
Lagot ka sa mga ate mga nandito. Ako nga po pala si LJ Palomeno all the way here sa puso nga ng Canada. Yun yung sabi nila.
Wow.
And I am currently employed as a dental assistant.
Kung si Ate LJ, dental assistant, her tagline is, kumain na ba kayo? Ayun, kumain na ba kayo? Hello everyone, I'm Kaina from Cavite. Yun, currently, marketing associate or parang social media coordinator ako for an Australian company. And sama natin syempre si Ate Chloe. Hi Ate Chloe!
Hi, hello everybody. Yes, I am Sister Chloe, Ate Chloe de la Paz, mula dito sa Adelaide, Australia.
Yes, kami po ang mga kasama for the first ever INT Radio Podcast. Okay, so sa mga nakikinig sa atin and syempre yung tayong mga nandito, okay, let's settle down, relax wherever you are around the world. This is INC Radio Podcast to let you know that we're here to hear. Anyway, so we're gonna talk about ito na. So, what is the significant thing that we constantly have to experience? What drives us to do the thing that we do? And how do we often act upon these things? The answer is taking the first step. And speaking of first step, yung pinaka main question natin for this episode is, how has taking the first step impacted you?
Sino gustong mauna?
Parang tingnan si Jaycon.
Ako pa rin talaga eh.
Paborito ka namin kasi bunso ka namin.
Yes, makinig sa mga ate.
Bunso goes
Eh,
first.
siguro yung first step ko, I'd relate it to my education because Pilipinas po kasi 'di ba yung curriculum natin is we have senior high school pagdating ng grade 11 and we have to choose a strand to take kung anong strand man yun. And doon ako medyo nahirapan when it comes to choosing the path kasi ang daming strand and all of them leads to different path din pagdating ng college, pagdating sa university and sa pataas. Mas sobrang nahirapan din ako pumili kasi figuring out kung ano ba talaga yung gusto ko, ano ba talaga yung gusto kong maging, parang gano'n ate. So, mga ate. So, kaya parang doon ako na-stuck na mag-isip. And when it comes to education, gusto ko kasi yung learning maging masaya. Ayoko ng parang malugmok ako or malungkot ako kasi yung stress parang mawawala yung will ko to learn. Oo, yung fun, yung will to learn kapag nasi-stress. So, yung first step ko is mag-enroll sa humanities and social sciences. Ikaw ba, Ate LJ?
Kasi sa akin din, nung high school din ako, sabi ko, hindi ko talaga alam kung anong gusto kong gagawin. Nung una talaga sabi ko, gusto kong maging cardiologist. Talagang something in the healthcare system talaga. Kasi yun talaga yung parang dream ko. Pero sabi ko, parang masyadong mataas yun. Di tayo masyadong mataas.
Height ba yun?
Hindi, imagine nyo na lang yung height ko. Kaya kaya sinabi ko na masyadong mataas na yun. Pero yun nga, katulad ni Jaycon, syempre, at the time, di ba, being young, madami ka talagang iniisip na, saan ko ba talaga gustong pumunta? At saka, yun nga, yung taking the first step comes with also great responsibility, di ba? Tsaka you also have to look at kung um, ano ba yung limitation mo at the moment. Di ba
Mhm.
katulad ng sabi niya, gusto mo mag-math, pero sa tingin mo
Kaya
sa
ba?
sarili mo,
Hindi
kaya
kaya,
mo ba? Yun nga, di ba?
Yes.
Siyempre, titingnan mo din yung limitation mo kung saan ka talaga at the moment. At saka yun nga, nung high school, hindi ko talaga alam kung anong gusto kong gawin. So, ang
hmm,
nangyari, kasi yung sa school ko, vocational school yun. So, it offered a lot of opportunities where I could take culinary, I could take media broadcasting. So, I took all of those opportunities. I took culinary and media broadcasting. Kaya talagang
oh,
na-involve ako sa pagbo-vlog, as in, nag-try ako mag-vlog. Pero hindi ko naman in-upload, basta for fun lang. Tapos, dun tinuruan kami mag-edit. So, na-enjoy ko yung part na yun ng
mhm,
that learning. Tapos, at the same time, I was also doing culinary. So, nag-alternate sila every other day. So, minsan nagko-culinary ako, minsan media broadcasting. So, nung
hmm,
nag-culinary ako talaga, sa family namin, mahilig si daddy magluto. So, talagang madami akong hand-me-down na recipe from lola, lolo. Pero sinabi ko sa sarili ko, kung gusto ko talagang maging chef at the end of the day,
hmm,
parang, kasi hobby ko yun eh, hobby ko talaga magluto. Pero I was thinking na, gusto ko ba yung hobby ko maging job ko? Tapos parang magiging
Mm.
dreadful na, hindi na siya magiging enjoyable.
yeah,
So,
At
sabi
some
ko, ay,
point.
hindi ito yun. Oo, hindi talaga ito yun. So, after that, sabi ni daddy, oh, why don't you try, sa dental assisting? Nag-offer din yung school nun. Everything for free. Kaya sabi namin, why not take the opportunity? Pero, the idea, I disliked it. Sabi ko, meeting, titingnan ko yung mga pasyente. Siyempre, di ba parang nakaka-step back yun. Kaya, nung una talaga ayoko, pero sabi ko, sige na nga, kasi you never know. Tsaka at the moment, I was like, I don't wanna live with what ifs in my life kung hindi ko naman tinry, 'di ba? Kaya nga, yun nga
hmm,
kanina, try ako mag-culinary, kahit hobby ko yun. Sabi ko, try ko, baka makita ko yung sarili ko dito at the end of the day. Pero hindi talaga eh. Kaya nung nag-dental assisting ako, tinry ko talaga siya. At first, it was hard. Pero as time went on, talagang na-enjoy ko siya nung naging clinical portion na. So, nag-mix na kami ng parang mga cement, yung mga ganong bagay. Kaya, ano, nung una, sabi ko, ay, parang nagugustuhan ko na to. Kaya,
hmm,
like, it was good that I took this first step to trying. Kasi, syempre,
hmm.
di ba, hindi mo naman malalaman kung talagang magugustuhan mo yung isang bagay.
And gusto ko yung sinabi mo ate 'no, yun talaga yung isa sa mga pinaka-barrier natin or challenges, yung what ifs, 'di ba, aside from self-doubt,
Yes.
it will always be uncomfortable for us trying new things, 'di ba? Kasi siyempre never pa natin siya
Yes.
na-experience before. The
Yeah.
testing waters will always be uncomfortable.
You know, in my case, taking the first step was just, I guess, paano mo ba sabihin? Like taking the first step was simply just doing it to enroll into a different degree. Because before I was actually a chemical engineer. I was studying chemical engineering. Before I was
Mhm,
studying chemical engineering, and I realized na halfway on, this started in high school, where in high school I actually, parang si KJ Con, I wanted to do law. And I was on the path of becoming a lawyer,
mhm,
where I had all of my subjects lined up perfectly to do law, right? But then
mhm,
what happens when I just change? One day there's just something in me that changes and I see,
bago.
no, this is not what I want to do. Well, what happens then?
Ah,
And so, taking the first step may be in different, like different approaches. I
mhm,
suddenly think I don't want to do this anymore. What do I do? Then I talk to other people. That was my first step. But then
ah,
when I got to chemical engineering, when I found out different ways to to get to engineering, from law subjects to engineering, it it was so much relieving. It was like a relief. It was like, oh, I can actually do this. Nah, it felt hopeful, and I was telling friends and asking them for advice. I was asking teachers. I was asking just anyone around me until I found a solution. So I think overcoming that challenge of taking the first step is to just not give up. Focus on something that is positive. You know, taking the first step, it's almost like trying to run into a wall and going through that wall. You will find a little crack. You will find a
Mhm.
crack. You just have to find it. And when you find it, you keep focusing on that crack. It's like tunnel vision. And so when you get there, then it might come in different forms. For example, um, like little tasks, like, oh, okay, I want to from engineering, I want to go into pharmacy. Okay, what do I do?
Mhm.
Okay, well, I can ask teachers. That's an easy way, and then they can tell me pathways. When I get to pathways, what do I do next? It's sort of how you would call like
Ate.
almost like a snowball effect,
Yeah.
'di Like
Yeah.
you do one thing and then you're like, "Oh, I did this."
Mhm.
And then you feel that sense of achievement and you're motivated to do more. That's what we sort of say as inertia.
Mhm.
Inertia is the idea that you will keep doing something until a force stops you from doing it.
Yep.
And when you get that inertia started, it's not going to stop. And so we just have to keep fueling ourselves, keep finding ways to get to that lost goal that we have, but not overwhelming ourselves so much. Like, okay, I have this really big final goal. I have to do so many things,
Mhm.
keep it one at a time.
Yung outcome parati yung iniisip natin, 'di ba?
Yeah.
Kasi
Oh,
Yes.
exactly.
yung first step, kasi parang yun nga yung sabi ni Kuya Jaycon, 'di ba? We always think about the what ifs. Parati natin
Mm,
iniisip yun yung talagang
exactly.
parang nagpapanik tayo agad iniisip. We're thinking too much ahead. Kaya nga ako these days, for some reason, talagang ano, when I land opportunities in my lap, parang I don't think about the consequences after the first step anymore. I just do it. Kasi, di ba
Mhm.
Yeah.
nga, we don't wanna live with what ifs. Bakit ba tayo, kung hindi mo tinuloy yung first step na yun, malalaman mo ba kung ano yung magiging outcome, whether
Yeah.
Exactly.
Exactly.
Tama, tama. It's that
Mm.
saying that you would rather regret doing something rather than regret not doing
Not
doing
something.
it.
doing
Yeah,
something, yes.
Oh.
I
kaya
really like what you're saying, Ate Chloe and Ate LJ, na yung experiences ninyo in actually just doing that first step initiative na magkaroon ng tapang, ng courage para gawin yung bagay na yon kahit nakakatakot. Yung parang kahit marami kang considerations afterwards. Kasi ganun naman talaga sa lahat. Actually, this is not what I wanted to share before, pero I just wanted to mention kasi same kami ni Ate Chloe in the sense na nung nag-college ako is nag-shift din ako ng courses pero hindi siya super layo. That time parang hindi ako enough or yung fear ko ang nag-push naman sa akin to take the first step to shift into another course that I think is safer for me or something that I'll be able to do better. Just like Ate LJ, it's not a thing na gusto kong gawin or gusto kong ginagawa or
yeah.
parang bakit ko ba 'to ginagawa, 'di ba? So may ganong feeling, may ganong factor pero at some point na-enjoy ko rin naman siya. Ayun, parang nag-first step ako into another profession or another line of work or another track out of
Mhm.
fear. Dun sa
Mhm.
bagay na gusto ko originally na I'm not sure if I can do better or not. Ayun, another thing kasi, ayun, ito, for sure, maraming nagwo-work na makaka-relate na ang hirap, isa sa pinakamahirap gawin na first step for most people ha, sa
Hmm.
nakilala ko is yung mag-resign. Kumbaga, pagka nawalan ka ng trabaho, parang sobrang hirap. Hindi parang, sobrang hirap talaga. So yun, yung first step ko na resign or mag-shift ng jobs from one to another. Kasi I've been with my previous company for almost 7 years. Lahat from scratch, lahat ng areas ng marketing nadaanan ko doon, and then andun na yung bond siyempre sa mga kasama mo, andun na
Mhm.
yung bond dun sa ginagawa mo, yung bond sa company mismo na parang, we are creating a brand from this, na ito ina-aspire namin one day na marating namin yun. So
Nag-grow
yun
na
lang.
talaga kayo.
Mm.
Yes, you're growing with yun, yung brand na
Company.
inaalagaan namin. And then, siyempre may mga frustrations din, and parang kasi masyadong malayo yung ano, yung job ko before. I'm in Cavite ta's yung work ko is nasa Ortigas, which is
Wow,
Pasig
Gaano
City.
kalayo yun
Mm.
ate?
ang layo, ah.
Malayo, everyday ako nagbabiyahe. So, 3 hours
Ah,
ang ano nun allotment ko.
Wow.
oo,
So
talaga.
yun yung ano, isa rin sa considerations kaya ako nag-shift ng jobs. Hanggang ngayon, natatandaan ko pa rin, very vivid pa rin yung memory ko dun sa I mean yung moment na nagpasa ako ng resignation letter. Like, paano ko ba sasabihin sa boss ko na kasama ko na for 7 years? Ang hirap, meron pa nga yung parang,
Mm.
itutuloy ko pa ba 'to or hindi? Yung
Tsaka ano ba
gano'n.
yung magiging responde ng boss mo na parang, "Matagal ka na dito, bakit ka pa
Tagal ka dito, pamilya ka na
Yes.
namin,
That's
parang
true.
gano'n, oo. Pamilya ka na
It's
namin,
either
anak na
positive
kita.
or negative.
Oo. Ayun nga, dahil nga ang hirap na mawalan ng work if you're trying to resign from another company. So, laging ang advice ng iba, maghanap ka muna ng kapalit na work bago ka mag-resign. Kumbaga, you can't be vacant or else, yun nga, mahirapan kang maghanap ng work. So, ganun yung ginawa ko. So, hanggang ngayon wala pa rin akong pahinga. So, yun, that day din is um yung new employer naman is following up sa signature ko naman sa contract with them. So, parang nasa
Ang bilis nga,
nasa
oo.
crossroad
Mm.
ako na
Parang
parang,
naging mahirap.
ah, sobrang hirap, sobrang
Siyempre,
momentous nung time na yun. Tandang-tanda ko yun, January 31, 1:00 ng hapon, Philippine Standard Time. Yun,
Oo naman.
2022. So yun, promise
Nandun
talaga
na,
sobrang
nandun na
hirap
sa
niya.
pero mga ate, I really do admire your courage 'no, yung bravery niyo to take these steps, to take the first step. Para sa inyo ba, ano yung pinaka naging malaking impact ng ano, ng pag-take ng first step? Yung kumbaga, with taking this first step, ano yung nabunga niya talaga sa inyo? Sige, Ate LJ.
Yun nga, yung parang, 'di ba, what I was saying kanina na you don't wanna live with what ifs. Kaya
Mhm,
kahit hindi ko nagustuhan yung talagang course ko nung una, yung dental assisting nga, I just took it anyway. Kasi you'll learn to love what you do, 'di ba nga?
yeah,
At saka you
Along
give
the way.
yourself a chance to open up. Kasi minsan yun din yung isang risk ng first step is parang nag-first step nga tayo pero takot ka pa rin mag-open up. Kaya hindi mo na-absorb yung parang talagang magagawa mo. Tsaka yung
mhm,
kay Kuya Jaycon, tsaka kasi since we're talking about career at
yeah,
tsaka school, don't be afraid na na to take something that is not usually what people would take. Don't be afraid to explore other options. Yun nga,
ay,
'di ba? Yun
Yes,
open
that's really
doors.
true. That's really true.
Yeah, you'll never know what you like. So don't be afraid in taking opportunities kahit natatakot ka. Kasi that's part of taking your first step. Like be a sponge, yun nga. 'Di ba? Tsaka
mhm,
continue
Yeah.
growing when it comes to things. Kasi yun din yung maganda that we're always growing, we're always expanding our knowledge. Tsaka yun din, makakatulong din tayo sa mga ibang, halimbawa sa friends natin who might be going through the same thing as us, right? So
yun,
yun.
Actually, when I shifted courses,
oo,
lumapit pa talaga ako sa guidance office ng
counselor.
school to
Mm.
take an actual
Oh,
assessment exam on what I really
you
am
Want
want,
to.
good at.
oo,
Actually, so ayun, kung curious ka lang, you can
I
have
can
those
do that.
things. Oo.
Oh,
Yeah. And you have
yeah,
your friends, teachers,
Yes.
ang ginawa ni Ate Chloe, di ba?
hmm.
Explore those options kasi those are there for you to help you guide you through whatever it may be.
Ikaw, Ate Chloe, ano pa yung naging impact niya sa'yo, ate?
Oh, ang dami, Kuya
Hmm,
Jaycon. You know, even up until now, I look back at it and I learn something new. And I think that's actually the first thing I learned is that when I took the first step, I learned what it was like to just take in everything, you know, like a sponge, like what the LJ said,
Yeah.
Yeah.
and just learning. I,
Like,
you know, taking the first step, it has inspired me. Like personally, it's inspired me to keep going. You know, even though it might not necessarily be what other people's main, like, you know, what their ideal
no.
ways is,
Mm,
that's on us. You know, it's a personal thing. We are not going to be defined by what other people think or what other people think is right. We we know the path that we want to take, and if there's a will, there's a way.
mm,
There will always be time. You know, it's a lot of self reassurance
Yeah.
when you're at a crossroads. Parang at the ina, like you're at a crossroads and it's really difficult. You have to trust not only yourself, but you have to trust God. I think
mm,
that's the biggest takeaway I've had when I go through different big decisions like this, is that I have learned to trust God and just leave it up to him.
Mhm.
There's a reason to everything. That's always what I think. There's
ah,
always a reason to everything that happens, to everything I think. If there's a thought in my mind that pops up out of nowhere, even though it's unprecedented, even though it's very far from how I would usually think, that means that God is planting this seed in my head and that I can do something about it. All of these will always stem from God. You know, if kung may gusto ang Diyos, if He has a will, and I am blessed enough that He thought of me to do these things, then
mhm.
who am I to be scared of what other people think,
No,
or
Yeah.
what I may think of myself? If I don't have the confidence to do it, then I always assure myself that God has confidence in me, and so why wouldn't I have confidence in myself? If He's
no.
going to help me anyway, then why should I worry? 'Di ba? And so
Oh,
that makes taking the first step just so much easier. It's such a relief from my shoulders, 'di ba? Heavy
yeah,
weight off my shoulders.
Wala din naman tayong, obstacles or challenges that we can't,
I know.
not overcome, 'di
Yeah.
ba?
Yeah,
At
Tama,
saka
yeah,
tama.
makikilala mo din yung sarili mo dun. Tsaka
mm,
you'll gain personal growth.
Yes,
yeah,
I agree at LJ. Character development, kumbaga. Yung mga challenges na na-overcome natin, yung mga nasasagupan natin along the way while taking our steps, especially first step. Yun yung parang deciding factor or yun yung parang magbibigay talaga sa atin ng na pwede pala 'to, kaya ko pala 'to, na I can do these things pala. Marami tayong madi-discover along the way.
Especially about yourself, dun mo malalaman
Hmm,
Mm.
yung limitations mo. Tsaka if you keep
yes,
pushing yourself, then your limitation bar bang tawagin, it'll
goes
go
high.
going up, 'di ba?
Yes, yes, yes.
Hindi mo nagagawa ngayon, nagagawa mo na pala ngayon, 'di ba?
Totoo, totoo Ate LJ. Kaya
Mm.
sasagutin ko na rin yung question ni Kuya Jaycon. If it's about me, it's all about shifting, changing jobs and all. Meron palang better situations na you can be in better places na mas maggo-grow ka, mas magagamit mo ng wise yung oras mo,
Mhm.
na hindi mo naman kailangang mag-stay sa isang situation na parang nakaka-harm din sa'yo as long as, you have, everything, not planned out but yung, honest ka sa kanila, honest ka dun sa mga tao na you're leaving because of this reason and then you want to do this, you want to do this instead, you're going to do this
Mm.
instead. Yun. So, yun sa na-discover ko. Mula nung nag-take ako ng first step before, lumakas yung loob ko na, "No, I can do this."
yeah.
Na after 7 years of working, kaya ko na. Yung parang gano'n, nagkaroon na ako ng confidence in myself
Confident.
nung nag-take ako ng first step na yun. So, sobrang grateful ako dun sa moment na yun ng buhay ko.
Ay, ang ganda nun.
Mm.
Ang dami talagang impact ng taking first steps, 'di ba? Mula pagkabata nare-realize natin 'yan, yung mga early childhood memories natin na nagta-try tayo, na nabubuo tayo kung ano yung personality natin ngayon na natutunan natin from pagkabata, na na-take
Yeah.
natin because taking the first step. And taking the first step, 'di ba, is usually, yun nga, sabi natin, the hardest part of the journey. Yan, often, minsan, yung someone is not sure about the best, direction, kung saan siya pupunta, yung susundin niya ba yung dreams niya, yung susundin niya ba yung pangarap ng parents niya sa kanya, or yung others. Isa sa mga tumatak sa akin sa conversation natin today is yung sinabi ni Ate Chloe na, you shouldn't let other people define what you want or what, you should take, 'di ba? You should focus on yourself kung ano ba talaga yung gusto mong i-take, because at the end of the day, kung yan man yung para sa'yo, magiging successful ka naman diyan, 'di ba? Gagawin
Yeah.
papagtagumpayan naman tayo ng ating Panginoong Diyos, 'di ba? Ikaw ba, Ate LJ, what do you think?
Yung first step kasi siyempre 'di ba, wala namang mapa yun, eh. Kaya nga 'di ba, we take the first step para malaman natin kung ano yung magiging outcome. 'Di ba katulad nga ni Ate Ina, oh, yung
Mm,
talaga na-inspire ako dun sa sinabi niya na 7 years siya nagtrabaho dun sa as in right out of high school. Kasi ako ngayon, parang yun yung
mm,
ginagawa ko right out of college. Eto na yung job, almost 3 years into my job already.
mm.
I'm slowly looking into other opportunities I can explore with my job. Kasi puwede din ako mag-travel with my job. Pero siyempre we always have to put yung pagtupad natin siyempre, 'di ba?
Of
Um,
course, yun talaga yung priority natin.
at saka yung mga opportunities ngayon, yun nga yung katulad ng sinabi ko kanina, yung mga opportunities na nalaland natin sa buhay or the ones that fall in our lap, that's because of God as well, 'di ba?
Yeah,
May nakikita siya sa'tin na capability kung bakit tayo nabigyan ng gano'ng challenge
yung
kaya
chance, yung opportunity. Yeah, thank you, ang ganda nun. Thank you so much, Ate LJ. Ikaw naman, Ate Ina, what's your takeaway?
Siguro yung pinaka-takeaway ko is in doing, that very momentous step na hindi ka lang sa sarili mo magtitiwala, eh. You pray,
Mhm,
you actually ask for help kasi just like what Ate LJ said, it's not planned out, eh.
mhm,
When you take that first step, maraming puwedeng mangyari afterwards.
yeah,
So, kaya nandun yung takot natin.
mhm.
Pero if we, start it right or if we, uh, do what we have to do and we can prepare ourselves for what's going to be afterwards, 'di ba?
yeah,
Marami kasing parang nasa first step na and then umatras pa.
Hmm,
Marami kasing nangyari na gano'n, 'di ba? Dahil nga, after the first step andun meron pang mga sometimes bigger
oo,
challenges or,
andun na agad.
hindrances, 'di ba?
Yeah,
Andun na agad. So,
yung
hindi
iba
na
naman,
ka-second step.
yeah, yung iba naman final step na lang yung kukunin. Kaya
Yun!
Hindi
ah,
din kaya, yeah.
biglang
Totoo yan, totoo yan. So,
kaya
yes, don't give up. Tama
okay.
yung sinabi ni Ate Chloe.
Yung mga takeaway ko sa aking mga ate is just, just try it. Take that first step. Kahit ano man yung sinasabi ng mga tao sa paligid mo, kung ano man yung takot na nararamdaman mo. Ako personally, basta if that's what you want and kung hindi naman siya mali, and of course kung naipanalangin natin sa ating Panginoong Diyos, then why should we be afraid, 'di ba? Ikaw, Ate Chloe, what's your takeaway for our conversation today? Oo.
Final takeaways is before we even think of taking the first step or before we even physically take the first step, we need to have courage and we need to have faith. You know, faith is something that we can't see and that's
Yeah.
something that we're always taught. And so having that much faith in what God can do will grant us the courage that we need. Panatas go a long way. Devotional prayers go a long way and they
parang naiiyak ako.
at times when you really don't know what to do, then the only thing that you have is prayer, and
Yeah,
that's what's gonna
Yes.
I
save us.
I
I
still do that even right now in times
Exactly.
when, nagda-doubt ako kung tama ba yung gagawin ko sa work or parang, is this really one thing that would work?
At
Prayer
saka
siya.
kahit alam mo na yung ginagawa mo 'di ba ate,
Hmm,
tsaka confident ka na sa ginagawa mo, siyempre mananalangin ka pa rin kasi nandun yung guidance ng Ama. Tsaka, I really like what Ate Chloe said about prayer. Meron kasing times kaya ako naging parang maiiyak ako.
emotional.
Kasi meron times talaga na before, yun nga yung when I didn't like my course, talagang
Hmm,
iniyakan ko yun.
hmm,
Minsan pumipikit na lang ako, hindi pa ako nakakapag-start ng panalangin ko. Parang sinagot na ng ama na may
Yeah.
sagot na.
Yeah,
Nararamdaman mo
tama.
na, eh.
Siguro one of the best feelings din talaga kapag nananalangin tayo after our prayers is yung pagkatapos mong manalangin parang may sagot na talaga 'no, yung feeling parang
Yes.
na-uplift na, oo, yung bigat na sa puso natin. Kaya ang sarap-sarap talaga manalangin, 'di ba? And that's it for our ano, for our first episode ng ating INC Radio Podcast. Tapos na agad, 'di ba? Tapos na tayo. Congratulations everyone para sa first step ng podcast natin.
Anniversary.
And that is it for our first episode. This is the INC Radio Podcast, where we're here.
To hear.
Here.
Let's open our devices and listen now. Let's have some fun, and this is how. As we have our INC radio podcast playing, we will have so much fun listening. INC Radio Podcast, we're here to hear. Whoa, 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 whoa. INC Radio Podcast, we're here